In a small town, what began as a simple purchase turned into a public humiliation that no one wanted to stop. But what happened next surprised everyone and left the entire town in silence. What would you have done if you had been there? Stay until the end, because this unexpected twist proves that appearances deceive and that dignity always finds its voice.
Beginning to heat the dusty streets of that small southern town. The air smelled of dry earth and freshly brewed coffee escaping from the bakery on the corner. In the middle of that everyday scene, the metallic bell of the old diner rang as the door opened. It was Camila Reyes, a young art student in a wheelchair. Her brown skin and face marked by strength and resilience immediately drew attention. She moved forward with effort, her hands firm on the metal rims. She only wanted a coffee and a moment of peace. But from the moment she entered, she knew. The stares followed her. They weren't long or blatant stares, but those quick ones that turn away immediately, yet carry silent judgment. A mother lowered her eyes. A man at the counter pretended to stir his cup. No one said a word, but everyone thought the same thing, that she didn't belong there. Haven't you ever felt those stares? The ones that don't say anything but weigh more than any insult?
Camila sat at a corner table, pulling out her sketchbook as she always did. But it didn't take long before it began. 3 young men at the counter started laughing. First it was a mocking sigh, barely noticeable. Then one imitated the squeak of her wheelchair wheels, dragging his foot across the floor. Another threw a venomous comment about how she dared to come in there, and the third finished with a loud laugh, like a sharp blow that cut through the room. It wasn't by chance, it was calculated. They wanted her to hear it. They wanted everyone to hear it. Have you ever felt how the laughter of others pierces your skin like needles? Camila knew that feeling well. And the worst part wasn't what they said, but what everyone else did. The waiter lowered his head. A woman hid behind her newspaper. No one intervened. No one. And you tell me, if you had been there, would you have stayed silent, or would you have stepped forward?
The door rang again with the sharp clang of the bell. The hot air from the street came in with him. It was a huge man in a black leather jacket, the Hells Angels patches glowing under the light, heavy boots striking the floor like hammers. His thick beard and cold eyes made him impossible to ignore. The murmur in the room died instantly. The laughter stopped. No one could pretend they hadn't seen him, because a Hell's Angel never goes unnoticed. His steps were slow, firm. His gaze swept across the diner, pausing for a moment on Camila, and what she saw wasn't pity or judgment. It was a direct, honest look, as if for the first time someone was truly seeing her. Then his eyes locked on the 3 young men, and that single look was enough to make the arrogance in their smirks falter.
The atmosphere was so heavy that even the buzz of the fan seemed to have stopped. One of the young men, nervous but defiant, pulled his phone out of his pocket and raised it. "Let's call the police," he shouted, his voice dripping with mockery. The other two laughed, convinced they had found a way to turn it around. The biker would be the aggressor, and they the victims. The call was quick and full of lies. A dangerous guy, a Hell's Angel threatening customers, "Come quickly." Poisoned words designed to make the defender the guilty one. Have you ever seen the truth twisted before your eyes while no one does anything? That impotence burned in Camila's chest. The rest of the room stayed silent. No one stood up. No one spoke. And outside, the sound of sirens began to grow louder, getting closer every second. And now I ask you, what would you have thought in that moment? That everything was lost? That the only one who had defended her would end up in handcuffs while the guilty ones walked free? The sirens went silent in front of the diner. The rumble of the engines vibrated against the windows. The door burst open, and the officers walked in with firm steps, their boots echoing like drums on the polished floor. The three young men immediately raised their hands, pointing at the biker. Their voices, full of false indignation, filled the air. "It was him! He threatened us! He's dangerous!" The silence was unbearable. Camila, hunched in her chair, felt her sketchbook weigh like a stone. She was convinced the inevitable would happen. The only one who had defended her would be arrested. The youngest officer stepped forward, but at that very moment, everything changed. The superior, a broad man with stripes on his uniform, stopped dead when he saw the biker. His eyes widened in surprise. His voice came out deep and firm. "Malcolm Hayes." The entire diner held its breath. Murmurs erupted like a wave spreading through every table. That biker, that Hell's Angel everyone had pointed at as a threat, was no ordinary outsider. He was a decorated war veteran, someone who had saved lives in combat and who was respected even by the police of the town. The young men froze, their arrogance erased in an instant, and Camila looked up for the first time, incredulous. That man, the one everyone feared for his jacket, was in fact someone whose story commanded respect. The air shifted. What had seemed like an inevitable injustice turned into an unexpected twist that left everyone in silence.
The officer demanded to see the security cameras. The manager, with trembling hands, ran to get the USB drive. In seconds, the screen showed everything. The mockery, the laughter, the cruel imitations. Then the entrance of the biker, steady, calm, not a single threat, only his imposing presence. When the video ended, the room fell silent. The officer spoke without hesitation. "That's all I needed to see." The verdict was immediate. The three young men would be sanctioned for harassment with hateful motivation and sentenced to community service. The customers who had stayed silent lowered their eyes in shame. No one could pretend anymore that they hadn't seen what had happened. Meanwhile, Camila felt the weight in her chest lighten.
The diner remained quiet, But it was no longer the silence of indifference. It was the silence of respect. The Hell's Angel stood still for a moment, then turned his head toward Camila. Their eyes met, and without raising his voice, his words were forever engraved. Dignity is not negotiable. Respect is not begged for. And no one who lives with honesty should ever bow their head. Camila felt something loosen inside her. She closed her sketchbook and took a deep breath. That day, she had recovered something she thought she had lost: pride. And as the sun lit up the dusty street outside, she knew that morning would not be forgotten, because everyone had learned that appearances deceive, and that silence, many times, is complicity.